All right, we will kick it off. My name is Erica Woodley, and I am the Dean of Students at Tulane. And we are so happy you're joining us tonight for our webinar about the values of student affairs and really an introduction of student affairs and kind of what we're all about and how you might interact with us and how we might be able to help you in your student transition to the university. Tonight, I'm joined by my colleagues, Carolyn Barber-Pierre, Dr. Laura Osteen, and Dr. Caesar Ross. You'll hear from each of them in a bit. This is the third time that we've done this webinar, and each time I would say we learn a little bit about kind of how to do it and what we should do and how we should change it. And last time, I think the big takeaway was that we talked a little too much. So this time we've restructured our plan, and we're gonna give you all a lot of time to ask us questions. You have folks who represent every area of student affairs, and so it's a good opportunity to ask kind of anything that might be on your mind. I know for some of you, we know for some of you that this may be your first student that you're sending to college, and you may have a million questions, and some of you may be pros, and this may be your third or fourth student to go to college. But what we know is kind of regardless of where you fall in that in that dichotomy, there's anxiety surrounding sending your student to a new place. And so hopefully the goal of this is to help you kind of feel a little more at ease about who we are and what we're all about and sending your student to us. I want to start by introducing someone who hasn't actually started at Tulane yet, but who we're very excited to welcome. Dr. Sarah Cunningham, pictured here, will be our next Vice President for Student Affairs. She'll start with us on August 1st. Dr. Cunningham is coming to us most recently from St. Louis University, but prior to that, spent some time at the University of Chicago and Johns Hopkins. I hope and I believe you all have the opportunity to meet her virtually and in person once she arrives. So, what is student affairs and kind of what are we all about? Most people really have no idea what student affairs is. I've been in this field for about 25 years, and I'm still trying to explain to my family what exactly my job is. So the easiest way, or the way I like to think about student affairs, is we're responsible and we're engaged with your students anytime they're not in class. And as you might imagine, that is a lot of the time they're here. And so we touch on a lot of different areas, and you'll hear from my colleagues about there are different areas of responsibility. And we have a lot of programs and activities and supports to make sure that your students' experience here is good. I would say one of our big roles is to help students navigate the ups and downs of their college experience. And I'll take a moment. This is my kind of soapbox. You'll hear me say this probably more than once. But college is hard. And I don't know that we do a great job of preparing students for that reality. I think we talk a lot about how awesome college is going to be and how they're going to make lifelong friends and have amazing experiences. And all those things are true. And they're also going to have challenges, and they're going to be exposed to people and ideas that are completely different than what they know and what they're comfortable with. They're going to be uncomfortable. There are going to be times and situations that make them uncomfortable. They're likely going to try things and fail. They're going to have conflict. They'll make some friends. They'll make some mistakes. They're going to figure out who they are while they're here. And this is all part of the experience. And so, I often talk to parents who are really upset that their student's going through something that feels a little hard. And I would offer you at this point kind of a reframe on that is actually what they're doing here. They're learning how to navigate things for themselves. They're learning how to feel effective at navigating the world. And hopefully when they leave here, they feel prepared to do this and to do what comes next. Tulane is a very special place. I've been here for, I'm just wrapping up my 21st year. And part of the reason is that is because it's a very special place, and I haven't been able to think of leaving. It functions a little more like a family than a college or university. And so, the folks that are on this call are people that not only do I work with every day, but I'm close to them, and we have a good relationship. We communicate well with each other. That's sort of the vibe across campus. we're all kind of in this to help your students be successful. And so part of that is kind of apparent in our values. And I'm sure as parents, you probably didn't go on the Tulane webpage and read all about our values. But if you have time and if you want to, it is actually the website dedicated to this, and Penny can send it out afterwards. It's actually pretty interesting. For those of you who don't know, we were founded as a medical college to help combat yellow fever. And so some of that is inherent in kind of everything we do. You probably have heard before that we have a strong public service and community service presence, and our students are really committed to that. But we're also, I think we also encourage our students and have students who are so innovative and they have opportunities to do research and engage academically in ways that are really just kind of amazing. We have part of the undergraduate experience, and probably likely why many of your students decided to choose Tulane, gives them the opportunity to study across disciplines and to really understand what it means to be academically collaborative and to learn kind of a multidisciplinary way of thinking. And this is all stuff that really is important to us. And then finally, inspiring excellence. I will be perfectly honest and say, there are times that you may feel that we fall short in this, but it is a goal and it underscores everything that we do and the decisions we make and the programs we develop and the way that we want to support your student. We're all striving for this. So with that, I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm about to stop talking. The Dean of Students office, which is my portfolio, has a few offices that you should know about. The first one is the Office of Case Management and Victim Services. And this one is one that we actually created in 2008, kind of post Virginia Tech. And the idea is, universities can be really complex organizations and hard to navigate. Sometimes they're hard to navigate for us. So for a person who's 18 or 19, sometimes it's hard. This is a good spot for students to come when they're having an issue that they don't know how to figure out. And we have, multiple folks who work in this office. And I also think it's important to note, sometimes your student may be the victim of a crime. They may have something that happens to them. And we can't promise you that that's not going to happen. We have a lot of safety mechanisms in place and things to prevent that. But what we can promise is that if your student has any kind of experience like that, they're going to have immediate support. The people in this office are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day. And so this is a really good place to go. And I tell students and parents this: if you don't know where to go, this is a great office to start with. Another great office to start with as a parent, if you don't know where to go, or a family member, is the Office of Family Programs. And Penny, who you've probably likely heard from at this point already, is always willing to take questions or calls about anything. And she may not know the answer, but she can certainly get you where you need to be. I would encourage you to keep up with the communications from this office. There are often really important announcements that come out from her office. And a lot of times when we send stuff that we think is important to students, we'll also send it to you. And so, I would make sure that you're engaged with this office. The Goldman Center for Campus Accessibility, for anyone who has a student who had a 504 plan in high school, this is the office here that helps get the right accommodations for students. And it is different than high school. And so, my advice in this area is to make sure that you're doing this stuff early so that your student can benefit from the accommodations that they need and kind of have it all set up before they get here. We always have students who say, yeah, I had that in high school, but I don't want it now. And let me just say, this goes for a lot of things. This goes for if your student has a therapist now, or they work with an executive functioning coach. The college transition is not the time to pull away resources. And so, let's line it up here. Let's make sure they have what they need when they come so that they can have a successful transition. The Office of Student Conduct, not always everyone's favorite, but a really important office. And I think from a philosophical perspective, we all believe that your students are going to come here and probably not make 100% good choices all the time. And, part of this is how they learn. And we believe in a student's ability to learn from their mistakes. So our Office of Conduct is about holding students accountable, but it's also about supporting them and helping them learn from mistakes. We have a recovery community, and it has been it's been in existence in a kind of a grassroots way for many, many years. Students who are in recovery from substance abuse issues have always gathered. A few years ago, we were able to formalize that and make it, we have a full-time person, soon to be 2 full-time people working on it. This year in August will be the first year that we open a recovery community house that will actually house students who are in recovery. And, this is an active community. They do a ton of things. And so if you have a student who's in recovery, this is another area where I wouldn't wait till they get here. I would connect them now to make sure that they have the right kind of support as they navigate that transition. And then, just in general, the Dean of Students Office tends to be a place where a lot of folks go with questions or problems. And as I mentioned, we have multiple tiers of people who span a bunch of different offices on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So anything that happens, we are prepared to respond in real time and do. With that, I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Carolyn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carolyn Barber-Pierre. My pronouns are she and her. I have the pleasure of serving as the director of the Carolyn Barber-Pierre Center for Intercultural Life. Our center has been in existence for the last 2.5 years, but I have the pleasure of, like Erica said, being a part of the family for the last 40 years at this institution. So have a lot of near and dear affection for this place, its people, and our community. Our center is comprised of the Office of Multicultural Affairs, which supports our students of color, Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, multiracial students, and our Latino students. The Office of Gender and Sexual Diversity, which supports all of our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer questioning and their allies. And then we support the Office of Spiritual Life, which composes of several different religious and spiritual organizations. Together, our offices provide services, whether it's advocacy services, mentoring, personal support, cultural, social, and academic programs to facilitate their adjustment here to the university and their ability to thrive thereafter. It is our mission to foster within the university a community of respect and appreciation for racial, ethnic, religious, gender, sexual diversity, and the history and traditions and cultures of our underrepresented student populations here at Tulane. We do that through a host of different programs and services. We advise over 30 different student, ethnic, and LGBT and religious student organizations. And then we work with every department and office on campus to make sure that we're creating inclusive, welcoming spaces where all of our students can see themselves thriving in this environment. And I will stop there and toss it over to Dr. Laura Osteen.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Hello, friends. I'm Laura, and it's my honor to work not only with this team, but with the Campus Life team. And in the Campus Life portfolio, there is the Office of Housing and Residence Life, the Levin Bernick Center, and the Office of Turning Sorority Programs. I think collectively, one of the things that all 3 departments have in common is a sense of, as Erica said, outside of the classroom, what is the activity and livelihood of the day? And so where did you put your head to sleep, and where did you wake up with your roommate? And then what organization are you a part of? And how did you grab some food in the commons? And so this idea about how your day might go through meeting other people, connecting, building communities for your success. Housing Residence Life is our first 3 years of your student's life. They'll be able to be here in our campus community. We're excited for the new 3rd year requirement, and I can talk more about that if folks have questions. But there are different styles of residence halls on campus and opportunities for students to make selections and work with their peers in their 2nd and 3rd year about who they want to live with. They're also able to do that in their first year. Many folks may have just gotten their time slot to move in, and the roommate process, if folks want to select, will begin soon. The Lavin Burnick Center, for folks who might be looking at other campuses or your own alumni experiences, for anyone who could think about a student union. This is our student union. So it is both a place and a program, a place where students can come and be throughout the day, grab a snack, coffee. It's also a place where student organizations call their home, where your students might find something to be involved in, or they may find that there's not this perfect club for them and they're going to create it themselves. Office of Turn-In Programs clearly is one kind of organization, and we have 3 councils here on our campus that represent 24 different chapter experiences for our students. And across that, opportunities for your students to get involved, to get engaged, and to create, build, and become the individual they seek to be with their peers. Caesar, take it away.
Good evening, all. I am Caesar Ross, and I've had the distinct pleasure of serving as the Assistant Vice President for Campus Health and Wellness. And as you can see by the bullets there are multiple departments that make up the Campus Health and Wellness portfolio. And as I often tell parents is, I tell them that while we all have unique roles, our principal purpose is to keep your student healthy and in the classroom. Going back to Dean Woodley's introductions of the university values, those values really symbolize what Tulane is all about. For example, we believe students learn through collaborative engagement, their interactions, collaboration, and conversations that they will have with students, faculty, and staff. And trust me, there will be many opportunities for students to engage with the university community during their academic career. Students may engage with the over 100 health and wellness professionals who are in the health center, the counseling center, the Well for Health Promotion and Prevention Services, and/or campus recreation. Also, students may engage with the over 400 student groups who work hand in hand with our health and wellness professionals. Some of the ways students collaboratively engage with health and wellness includes through their service on TIMS. And TIMS stands for the Tulane Emergency Medical Services. And TIMS is a student-run ambulance service. Other students may engage with the portfolio by participating in TUPS, and that acronym stands for the Tulane University Peer Health Educators. And TUPS is a diverse group of students who are out and about on campus, educating students about a number of health and wellness topics. And other students may choose to engage with the portfolio by participating in SAFES. SAFE stands for the Sexual Aggression Peer Hotline in Education. And SAFES is a compassionate group of students committed to supporting survivors of sexual violence. And this same group manages a 24/7 hotline to get survivors connected to both on and off campus resources. Last but certainly not least, students may choose to collaboratively engage with the portfolio by supporting the many programs that are offered through campus recreation. And campus recreation is one of the largest employers of students on campus. So together, our 100+ professional staff and 400+ students collaboratively work to ensure continuity of care and services to the entire university community. Should also say that Campus Health and Wellness, we offer a robust number of health and wellness services, and our model is intentional and holistic by design. Because we know, because of the intersectionality of each dimension of wellness, we know and understand that they all contribute to our own sense of wellness or quality of life. At times, one may be more important or more prominent than others, but neglecting anyone for any length of time may adversely impact one's overall health and well-being. Therefore, together, our many robust health and wellness programs, services, and activities address all 8 dimensions of wellness. Again, we are so excited that you'll be joining us. We're looking forward to hearing about things that are important to you, and we look forward to supporting your academic experience in meaningful ways. Again, welcome to Tulane. And with that, I will turn it to our moderator, Penny.
Hello, everyone. Well, parents and family members, this is time for you to submit your questions and we'll go through those. And we've got plenty of time here, I think, to answer your questions. And if there's something that comes up that we can't get to, then we'll answer you individually after.
Penny, can I actually say one thing before we get going on the questions?
Yes.
I meant to mention this earlier, but your students, every year we have a book that all first-year students read. And then they're supposed to read it, that they will get it over the summer. And then when they come to campus, there'll be like a discussion group about it. This year's book is a book called Platonic. And it's actually about the science of attachment and how that can play out in platonic friendships. And I think of all the books I've read lately, I actually really enjoyed this book personally. But I think if you have the occasion, I would recommend taking a look at it and chatting about it with your student. It is really, it has some really concrete things that I think can be really helpful as students learn to make friends. And the other thing I'll mention is that a lot of students, come to us having had lifelong friends or people that they've known forever. And so, kind of the idea that it takes a little time to have those deep connections, and that, the people you meet right away might not be your favorite people. And it might take some time to really meet the people that are your people, is a good conversation to have. And this book really sets the stage well for that.
Okay, so one question is, in some other orientation communications, it was mentioned that we could send things during the summer for their residence hall rooms. When can we start sending those things? What's the address and all of that? So Laura, would you like to take that question?
Yes, I would love to. And yes, all capital letters, yes, is the answer to that question, insofar as for anyone on this call who remembers their move-in day. I remember my move-in day, and it was a bear. And we are trying to shift that culture into a way to celebrate and focus on the relationship and the transition and saying goodbye and setting up the room versus the lugging to the room. And so we do ask, and I would change that letter actually, or that word, from ask to expect, that you will send in mail your items to us. And then what we do is we put them in your student's room. And so when you get here, they are in the room already. When you drive up and for move-in, there's about a block at the closest 2 blocks to walk from your car to the residence hall. So that's another incentive to everything in mail you don't have to carry. But we are very pleased to offer this service that we think is just a beautiful way to shift the day of move-in. The specific details of that process will come after your move-in times. And so I think just today or yesterday, folks were starting to get their move-in times. The next communication to you will be all the details of how to ship those materials. But we are very excited about it. And after that communication comes, if you do have questions, there'll be lots of details in that communication about how to reach out and ask any question you have.
And I'll just mention that that information will go to the student's Tulane email address, and a hard copy packet will also come to their home address. So if you happen to be away on vacation or they're somewhere else, they'll also receive that in an email form. So so wait, please don't send anything too early. because it could be returned. So you'll get really specific information about the window of time that you can ship things to campus. Another question is related, it's kind of similar. Can you mention the sale of other students' unwanted items? And that is called Trash to Treasure. And that's a student organization that collects those things at the end of the year as students move out, and they store them over the summer, and then they resell them. And then the money they raise supports the operation, and any money over and above that operational cost, they donate to local nonprofits. So it's called Trash to Treasure. It'll be set up on those move-in days, and you'll get more information later in the summer about that as well. But it's a great place to purchase things so that you don't have to ship them, purchase them ahead of time, and you can get them at a really good discount rate. You know, they're gently used items. So another question is to repeat the name of the book, the reading project book.
Yeah, I can do that. It's called, I'll give you the full name. It's called Platonic: How the Science of Attachment Can Help You Make and Keep Friends. And it's by Marissa Franco.
And there was an article about the reading project book in the students' most recent Navigator e-newsletter, which went out on Monday, I believe. So your student has some information about the book, about how it will be used, and about the content of the book, and a little bit of information about the author already. So another question that could go to Laura, could you walk us through what move-in day looks like?
Sure. So every family will get a move-in time, and at that move-in time, you would arrive to D.H.A Garage, where check-in will happen. And so folks will come off of Claiborne, park in D.H.A, and then you'll walk up and you'll get keys and ID, and then be escorted by a fantastic orientation wave leader to your residence hall, where you can unpack boxes and start to set up your room. There are other events on campus that day, and so in many ways, you and your family then have some choices about how you want to spend the rest of that day. You can go to Trash to Treasure and find what options are there. You might go and buy the items that you couldn't take on the plane, like shampoo or soaps in that nature. There's also an incredible family and parent event that the Carolyn Barber-Pierre Center hosts that evening, as well as other events on campus to welcome you. A lot of the answer to your question will depend on what that time of your move-in is. And so families may spend more time together in the room. Families may make other choices about walking on campus or visiting the city of New Orleans. Again, in many ways, it goes back to that shipping your items ahead of time will make all the difference in the smoothness of that day.
I would add there are two parent events that happen kind of at the end of the day. Carolyn's event happens, and then there's another event where the leadership of the university will talk to families as well.
And the
And we would love
students
for you to
are
do
in their own separate meeting, while the parents have that meeting with the university leadership. So, so you'll be free from doing things with your student, because they'll be occupied in a different meeting, and you can come to this other big welcome event for families. So here's another question. And it is about managing allergies, and if they're this person said they wrote to the housing office about allergies, and they were referred to the Goldman Center. And so, Erica, you might want to talk a little bit about how that request for accommodations process goes.
Well, first of all, congratulations, you were on top of things, which we really appreciate that. It gives us a lot more options in terms of actually accommodating students. I think it depends on the nature of the allergies. I think food allergies, we have, and we're actually, I don't know if anyone's mentioned this to you all, but we're in the process of changing our dining vendors. And we'll be an Aramark campus. And so that we've had a lot of conversations about allergies related to food, and we have had in the past like kind of an allergy focused zone. So for folks who are allergic to nuts or things like that, so it's a place to sort of be assured that there's a contamination free zone. But we work with students based on kind of what their specific thing is. If they have allergies to mold, which is a tough one, there's another sort of process we would follow. But for the purposes of kind of the next steps, I think completing the request for accommodations through the Goldman portal and submitting that documentation is the first step. And then someone will be in touch with you, and there will be an interactive meeting. Campus Health, Caesar, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but Campus Health does also, there are two nutritionists. There's one within Campus Health, and then there's one that will be embedded in the dining services. And both of those folks do a lot of work with students in terms of helping them navigate food choices. And students who have EpiPens or allergic reactions always have access to Campus Health during the day, and then we have telehealth options at after hours, and as Caesar mentioned, TEMS.
And the only thing I would add to that is, as the students are preparing to move to campus, if they have allergies in general, it's important for their care packages or their safety kits to include an EpiPen. So if you're bringing an EpiPen with you, please be certain to check the expiration date. Knowing the expiration date is extremely important. And of course, if you get here and you don't have an EpiPen, certainly my team is more than willing to work with you and or order that supply for you if needed.
So there's a question, how do we know how the room is configured and what's in the room? Like a microwave and a mini fridge, is that information online? And so yes, on the housing website, if you go to housing.tulane.edu and look under the, look at the tabs at the top, and I think there's one that is about, I'm not remembering right away, but I will send that in the email to all of you as a follow-up. But there's one that will show you what the kind of typical things are in the room. And they do have, there's one micro fridge that's already there in the room for the two roommates to share. And so it has a small microwave and a refrigerator combination machine. So it's all in one thing. So you cannot bring any additional microwaves or small refrigerators. It's already provided in the room as part of, what they pay for the room rent. And so you can count on that already being there in the room. And then there will be other information about just the layout of the room or the typical furniture that's already provided online on the housing website.
And I would just also say, like, as you're packing up and deciding what to buy or bring, the rooms aren't huge, and you don't need everything that you ever had in your life. We have students who really kind of overdo it, and it makes it hard on a couple of fronts, but particularly at the end of the year when students are ready to go. The process of moving out is not ever as exciting as the process of moving in. And so I would, kind of be realistic about the room size and kind of what you absolutely need and what maybe you don't need right away. If you're coming in August, I can promise you could wait on the coats. It's a warm time of year, so there are things like that you can do a little later. Yeah.
And you can find things to outfit the room once you get to the trash to treasure sale, and they'll be less expensive. You don't have to pack those and send them and all of that. The section on the housing website where you can find some of this information is under logistics. So check that. Another question is, do you happen to know if there's a weight limit on the boxes that you can ship in advance? That information and the size of the boxes, the limits to those, will be explained in the information that you'll receive. So I don't know, Laura, if you know that off the top of your head, but I know it'll be provided in detail when that comes to you. You don't want to have boxes that are so large that they're hard to pick up. So they do give you some parameters to use.
On the mail services website of Tulane, if you kind of Google mail services ship to room, it will come up with a sample example of what costs would be to ship and suggested sizes. And so that can help you start to plan. But I think that from a sense of, we came up with 6 boxes for free because, to Erica's point, you don't need much more than that. And honestly, what we just saw a couple weeks ago on Move Out is everything beyond that becomes trash on the street. And just so to think kind of really intentionally around that process.
So one question is that their student is having trouble with their Tulane email address and accessing the portal. And so they want to know who to contact to troubleshoot with this. And so that would be our information technology department. And you can email it@tulane.edu or look on their website, which is it.tulane.edu. And under the contact tab, you'll see several different ways to contact them. So
I recommend calling because they can actually walk you through it while you're on the phone. And then if something that you tried doesn't work, they can make sure that they try the next thing.
and I'll include that phone number in the follow-up email that I send everyone. So another parent had the question, will there be time to visit with our student on the morning after their move-in day? So for example, if their student moves in on Monday, will there be time to visit with their student on Tuesday morning? Or should we say our final goodbyes on the evening of the move-in day? So students do have a mandatory meeting to be in at 10 a.m. the next morning, I believe. And so it really does work best to probably have your final goodbyes that evening of their move-in day, given just checkout times for hotels and how you might need to be leaving and everything. So in the very first e-newsletter that I sent on May 7th, there is some information about how that day flows and how to sort of gauge how you'll spend your time. And now that you know your students' move-in time slot, that might help you kind of put all that together to plan your visit. We do recommend that if your family wants to spend some time exploring New Orleans together, then arrange your travel so that you can do that before move-in, because the day after their move-in, they'll really start doing things with their peers and with the guides that they'll have who are older students who are their wave leaders and such. And so we really do want them to be focused on those activities and fully participating in that. So one parent is already thinking ahead to the end of the first year. So we like to see that kind of pre-planning. And the question is, does Tulane provide storage over the summer to keep students' belongings at the end of the year, or do they need to find storage on their own? So I'll turn this over to Laura.
Yes, we have a contract with a vendor we've used, USS, for a very long time. They will be stationed right outside the residence halls with boxes and opportunity for students to make arrangements with them to store over the summer. There is a cost, but with the benefit of that is that they like the ship to room. Those boxes would be in your student's room when they move in their sophomore year. So they don't have to come pick them up from a storage location or something place off campus. They will literally be in their room when they move back in their sophomore year.
So another question is that my son requested a roommate who has been assigned a different move-in day. Are we able to change the move-in day so they're moving in on the same day? Laura, do you want to address that one?
So we ask for you not to, unless there are extenuating circumstances where that's the only way. Some of the randomization of the timing is so that traffic patterns, elevators, that you're not waiting for the same elevator with everybody else who wants to go on that same day. And so the reason for different days is for traffic patterns, is for flow, is so that you have the smoothest move in possible. And so there is thought behind that. And so if anyone out there does have extenuating circumstances about why for your family it has to happen on a certain day, you're welcome to appeal. But we're asking everyone not to appeal, because the point is that not everyone is moving into the same hall on the same day, so that it's a better day for everybody.
Housing does provide a certain window of time where students can make changes or request those. The advice is not to do that as soon as that portal opens, because there needs to be some movement, some other students who want to make changes so that some spaces open up. But Laura is absolutely correct. They've really carefully calibrated this to just try to manage the flow of things. So it really might work out best if you'll just follow the way you've been assigned, so that it's a lot more manageable for everyone. So the next question or comment first, Tulane seems to be very on top of hurricane preparedness compared to other schools. Can you just share a bit more information about what we might need to know if we've never lived in New Orleans or another location that has a lot of similar weather systems? So I'll just mention first, I'm sure there'll be other panelists who want to chat more about this, but we did have a webinar for families last week on hurricane preparedness and response. So I'll include the recording link to that so you can watch that whole video and look at those slides. But I'll let our panelists speak to hurricane preparedness issues.
I would love to talk about this, and thank you for asking. I think there are a few big things that I think we would love for you to have in place. The first one is a plan for your student to leave the university if there is a hurricane. We do have university assisted evacuation, but it is not pleasant, and it's not something that I think students really, it's not a great scenario. But if they can't get out, we will help them, but we really encourage them to have their own plan. And a plan can be like, I'm going to get in a car with my roommate who lives in Shreveport, and we're going to go spend the weekend in Shreveport, or I'm going to fly home, or I'm going to, take this opportunity to go with other friends who are going to a place that we've never been. Like, students do that kind of stuff. And that is definitely what I would recommend, is having a plan in place for people. The other thing that I think is important, and it's very, very important if your student at any point lives off campus, but I believe it's important no matter where they live. The concept of renter's insurance, it's very inexpensive. And it is very good in the case of, and I have had parents say, well, my student doesn't have that much stuff. But if you start replacing everything, it actually does add up. And we've had students, particularly again, those who live off campus, incurring a lot of expenses. And previously, I think folks' homeowners insurance might cover it, but we've seen a decline in that, especially if it's something water related. And so the renter's insurance is really, for the price, some peace of mind. And so I would recommend that. And the other thing is, this is probably going to get me in trouble, but the university will make decisions about canceling classes or whatever. If there's a hurricane headed for the Gulf and you're uneasy about it, or your student's anxious, bring them home. We can always work with folks on the back end to figure out missed assignments or whatever it is. The one thing that there are times when professors are not accommodating. They're usually pretty accommodating, but times when they're not. Hurricanes are not one of those times. Like, everybody understands the anxiety that comes with that. And so, I think this is a situation where if you feel uneasy, or if your student feels uneasy, bring them home. Like, they're not going to get in trouble for that.
And one of the things that we mentioned in the hurricane preparedness webinar is just for students to honor that flexibility with communication, and just communicate to all their professors that they have made the decision to enact their plan, that they with their family decided that they need to leave New Orleans. And so then just for them to watch their email, check in on their Canvas is the online course management system. Professors will communicate with them. And so if they couple responsible communication and follow-up with making those decisions that fit your family's needs and decisions best, then I think that works out for everybody. So, so I encourage you to submit more questions. We've still got some time that we can take a few more. So we'll wait here to see what else we might have. One question is about whether or not a family needs to have a power of attorney document on file in case their student had an emergency or had to be transported to a hospital. Can you speak to that, Erica?
Sure. I know that everybody in your life is probably giving you the advice that you need that right now. And it's again, I think, born out of people's anxiety or fear of this happening. But you can obviously put that in place if it's something that makes you feel better. It's not something that I think you need here. And in fact, in most cases, even if you have that, if the student is okay, they're going to want the student to give consent for you to be involved in any decisions in real time. In situations where we've had students who've been seriously injured or there's something going on, there are two things that happen. One, the university is going to, if your student is injured and cannot contact you themselves, we're going to notify you. And we'll act as the liaison with the hospital. And I've not had a situation where a student was in a even like medium serious accident or incident where the hospital wouldn't communicate with the parents. I think, we have a lot of hospitals in the New Orleans area, and they all understand that, college students whose families are far away, there's a need to communicate about that. And they don't really, I've never seen an issue with that. And I'm involved in a lot of the hospitalizations and kind of the follow-up from those.
So another question is, can first-year students have cars on campus? Who wants to tackle that one?
No. They can if there is an exception to this process as well. But we want students to be on campus. We want them to be engaged with campus activities and things that are happening, especially for their first year. But if you're not from New Orleans and you haven't spent any time driving here, the first year I lived here, I was 25 years old. And after 8 months, I took my car in to get new tires. And the guy basically said, I don't know what you did to this car, but you've really, I've never seen a car in this terrible shape. The roads here are a challenge. And so for someone who's not a very skilled driver, I think it's a lot to expect to make that transition while you're making the transition to college. And so for that reason, we've always had a situation where, your first year, you really can't have one unless there's some really extenuating circumstance that requires that. And there's a process for petitioning to appeal that.
And car insurance can be a lot more expensive in New Orleans and Louisiana than what you might experience where you're from. So something else to anticipate maybe further down the line.
A lot would be understating.
Yeah.
Will this webinar
It's also hard to park. There are areas that flood. It's just it is real, like car ownership, even for people who are well into their adult years is a different kind of burden here than it is in some places.
And the streets in the nearby neighborhood, a lot of those require permit parking, or they're really limited hours that you can park on the street. So it's really quite challenging to try to park near campus during business hours and stuff. So it's just really not ideal. It's best for your student to learn how to navigate what we have and get used to the campus environment and everything before they add that additional complication into their life.
By the way, we also have pretty good shuttle services, and we have something, it's not called Tap Ride. I forgot what it's called now. It's
Transloc.
What's it called?
Transloc.
So this is kind of like a point to point service. So it's sort of like Uber, but free, and it takes students to from one location to the other within a certain radius. And some students use that. And of course, students use kind of the rideshare stuff, probably more so, because I think it feels a little more independent than a university run car service.
So another question, I understand parents can be authorized from the students or authorized by the students for billing information and payment, but can parents be authorized for all Tulane information, not just billing?
Yes, you can, and you should not do that. I think this is part of the helping your student learn to navigate independence and communicate with you. I think, building on kind of a place of trust is really important for students. And, I think staying engaged with them and asking them very specific questions about how they're doing and what they're doing. I think that works in many ways better. The health stuff is totally separate always, but there is something called a FERPA waiver that your student can sign. And that is, I think, what they sign for accounts receivable information. But you can also ask for grade information and other conduct information, other forms of information. What I will tell you is, we have a pretty, what I would call liberal interpretation of FERPA. And so if there's something going on and we think you need to know, we're gonna involve you. And it may be, calling your student in and saying, hey, I think this is probably something we need to involve your parents in, or, calling you directly and saying, we're worried about this. And that's a two-way street. You can always call us if you have concerns. You know, I think it's perfectly acceptable at the end of the semester to say, well, let me see your grades. And along the way to ask questions. But, you know, we have students whose parents require them to give them like their password on things. And that really undermines your students' responsibility, their development of their own kind of competence and their ability to manage these things on their own. And I know it's, for some people, you know, it's a leap to go from something that's really, you know, managed and controlled to something that where there's a lot of freedom. It's important that they learn to navigate that, even if it's not a perfect navigation.
And I'll mention too that students also get midterm grades at Tulane, and those don't go on their permanent transcript. So it's a good midpoint indicator of how they're doing in a class. So I always give you those dates of when midterms will be posted in the family newsletter. So you kind of know when you can check in with your student. And another good thing about when midterm grades are posted is that it's before the last date to drop a class without record. And so if they feel like they're not doing well in a class, they can consult with their academic advisor. If they're carrying enough credits, even if they drop that class to still be considered full-time, then they can make some decisions about maybe postponing that class to a different semester, or just get some indication of how they're doing so they can follow up with the professor to pursue some tutoring, or, you know, get some other advice about how to approach the way they're studying for class and that kind of thing, so that they can improve before their final grade for the semester is given to them by the professor. So keep that in mind. I do also just want to clarify that even if your student does sign that FERPA waiver, it just gives a Tulane official permission to discuss their record with you. It doesn't give you direct access to a portal where you see everything, which is the kind of system you might have been used to in their K through 12 experience. So it still is different at Tulane. Some schools do that differently, but it doesn't give you that direct access the way your student can give you access to their billing information. So another question, and this would be for Laura, is living on campus as a junior mandatory? And what if they plan to study abroad that year, part of that year?
Yes, thank you so much for asking, because we are very excited for this shift, and we recognize it's a change for Tulane. It's not a change for other universities that have 3 and even 4-year live-ons. We are not moving to 4-year live-on, but we are very excited about the 3rd-year live-on. Study abroad students would not live on because they will be gone the fall semester. And so when they come back the spring semester, they can make some choices about whether or not they do want to move back on, or if they want to. What we imagine is many students might get a lease that then starts for them for that spring semester that takes them through their senior year. But we are excited about it because living on campus, students do better. That's the summary. That's the easiest answer. That kind of every level of Maslow, from your safety and security to your ability to connect with friends, to the ability to have access to research labs and faculty, and the resources are here within a tight-knit community that in many ways we are able to push ourselves and take greater risks when we are comfortable. And so if we can take care of one comfort, then what else could our students do as they reach for the stars?
I would also add the area around Tulane, the off-campus housing market is precarious at best. And so, you know, we have landlords, we have some great landlords, and we have a lot of not great landlords who have almost what I would call predatory practices. And we try to educate our students, but, you know, when you're 20, it's hard to know all the things to ask and to be a really good consumer of property. And so, you know, our hope is giving them a little more time to kind of learn how to navigate some of that stuff will prepare them better for entering that market. And, you know, honestly, the hope is that with some relief on that market, maybe there will be a little more reasonableness to some of the rent prices. They're again, like bordering on what I would call predatory.
Caesar, this question will be for you. Is Kaiser accepted by Tulane for medical insurance? It covers for urgent care and emergency care outside of California. So could you briefly mention, you know, how the whole health, you know, required health insurance process works?
Sure. At Tulane, we have what is referred to as a hard waiver student health insurance plan, meaning that students have to, and or their parents have to provide proof that they have a comprehensive health insurance plan. And if they cannot provide proof of that, they will be required to purchase what we call T-SHIP, the Tulane University Sponsored Student Health Insurance Plan through United Healthcare. As a part of your, one of the many emails that you'll receive from the institution will include an email from Gallagher, which is our broker that oversees the United Health Plan, and you would go to their website to include your insurance information for Gallagher to assess whether or not it meets the comprehensive requirement, etc. In terms of what plans are accepted within the health center, we accept many of the plans offered by the major carriers, such as Humana, United Healthcare, of course. We accept Cigna, Aetna, and there are a few others that we accept. But be that as it may, if your student presents in the health center and has a plan that's very particular about who the student should see for X service, please know that the health and wellness team will work with them to help them find an in-network provider in the community. I hope that answers the question.
So we've got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. For the person who asked about IT support, I wanted to give you that phone number. So the phone number is 504-988-8888. So 504-988-8888. One question is will there be printers in the residence halls? So there are printers that the students can use in the library. And I think the business school has some printers. There are also printers in the home of Newcomb Tulane College, Cud Hall. So there's some different places, and they start with a credit for printing pages, and then they can add to that if they need it. I don't believe we still have any printers in residence hall spaces, but they're in other places around campus that have a lot of accessibility. And we've really moved to so much of what students submit is all online through their course management system that we don't recommend that students bring a personal printer with them to campus. It'll just take up space in their residence hall room that is really not necessary. So one other question, since students need to stay on campus up to and including junior year, do they have to move out as seniors, or can they choose to stay another year and not have to find a rental off campus?
We would love them to stay as their senior year. Absolutely. If everybody wants to stay, then we're in trouble. But for the seniors who want to stay, odds are we've got room for you and would love that.
And that process happens in early spring. They start getting information about, how to go through that process of submitting, preferences, and they'll get a chance to look at other residence hall spaces that they, may not have been in yet, and submit all of that information and submit a contract again for the next year. So that happens every February, March time period. So would the panelists like to leave any final thoughts or recommendations or advice before we close?
We're looking forward to being with you and your student, very, very much so. This is a collective learning process, and we welcome everyone into the Tulane family as we move through this process.
Yep, Laura, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm so delighted that you're coming this fall, and we look forward to supporting and creating a community where everybody feels welcomed and supported.
And parents, you are leaving your students in good hands. So try not to worry, and please know that we're just a telephone call away if you have questions for us.
Anybody else? So families, I'll just let you know that we'll send you the link to this webinar and the slides, and I made notes on some of the questions that you had, so I can give you direct websites to find more information. I also always encourage you to email if you have any feedback about this or suggestions for improvement. We're always open to that. I see some people sending some little emojis to clap for our panelists. So I want to thank our panelists for their time and attention tonight, and thank all of you for joining us this evening for this important talk. And we just wish you a good evening. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
See you later.